Rodgers talk, a McLaurin trade proposal, and OTA standouts. Big Deke news. So apparently people like Adam Schefter think Aaron Rodgers was the Steelers' third option at quarterback.
But let's also remember that this was the third option for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They were in on Matthew Stafford and couldn't get done a trade. They tried to re-sign Justin Fields. He opted to go to the New York Jets, where he will meet Aaron Rodgers on opening day. And after they couldn't get a trade done for Stafford and couldn't get Fields re-signed, they pivoted to Aaron Rodgers. So Aaron Rodgers right now was their third choice.
You know what? I'm not buying it. I'm just not. Rodgers as the third option. I see where Schefter's coming from in terms of like a sequence of events, because the Steelers were able to talk to Fields first, and they were interested in Fields. And then Stafford kind of became available, and they were able to look into that. And then once free agency started, or at least a few days before free agency or a week before free agency, you knew that Rodgers was going to be available. And then the tampering period started, and then the Steelers were actually able to see what Rodgers' interest was in joining here potentially and doing business. So like in terms of sequence of events and like looking into things, yeah, the Rodgers thing was the third of the three that we just talked about. But in terms of like options, I don't think that's the hierarchy of it, because if Justin Fields was really the Steelers' number one option, Justin Fields would be here, because what the Jets offered Fields and what we could have paid Fields, we could have at least paid what the Jets offered Fields and more if we really wanted Fields, right? If we really wanted him, if he was really our number one option. It's not like Fields was asking for 40 or 50 million. Fields' offer was market value. It was appropriate, I feel like. What, 20 million per year? Maybe a little bit more, but it's just like Steelers. If you really wanted Fields, Omar Khan, if you really wanted Fields, you could have made that happen. So I think here's how you really got to look at it. The Steelers had tier one options, or their top three options, and that was Fields, Stafford, Rodgers, maybe even Darnold if you want to throw him into the mix. And they weighed all the factors at play to get each one of those guys on their team. What would it take to get Fields? Okay, does it take that? We're good on that. We don't value him like that. Stafford, what does it take to get him? Maybe trading a first-round pick, second-round pick, and then we got to pay him $40, $50 million per year. We're good on that. Rodgers, what would it take to get him? He's in the mix here. 1 year, $10 million guaranteed. Incentives up to $19 million. That's interesting. Sam Darnold, let's look into that. He's younger, in his prime, coming off a good year with the Vikings. Okay, that's what Seattle paid him, or that's what Seattle offered. We're good on that. That's how I think the Steelers really approached it. I don't think there was this like number one option. If we don't get him, we're screwed. Now we got to go to option B. No, I think they had top options. Omar Khan always talks about keeping his options open and looking at what's available and what's best for the team.
All options are on the table.
So, like, that's how I think they looked at the quarterback position this offseason. They weren't dead set on one player. This is option one. This is option two. This is option three. I think they had a bucket of, like, tier one options that they were good with, and Rodgers was a part of that. And then given the contract, given what Fields went for with the Jets, given what the Stafford trade price was going to be, given what Darnold went for with Seattle, like, Rodgers actually became the Steelers' number one option, because this is a business. This is how the NFL works. Like, you got to weigh contract and giving up assets, all that stuff into the equation. And I think Rodgers, for what he signed for, and given that he's Aaron Rodgers, Steelers are looking at it and saying, yeah, that's our number one option. When it's all said and done, we're willing to wait him out. And I think they're going to be rewarded for it when it's all said and done. Because I think Rodgers, like, there's a really good chance he's going to be better than Fields. He's going to be better than Russ. He's going to be better than Darnold this year. Stafford, I hold him in high regard. You know, he's an elite quarterback. But who's to say Rodgers doesn't have a better season than Matt Stafford this year? Like, I don't think that's really out of question either. But we're paying Rodgers, again, $10 million guaranteed, incentives up to $19 million, versus trading up a high pick to get Stafford and shelling out a ton of money. Now, here's the other thing too: the Steelers, like, the trade rumors continued with Stafford, and the Steelers were out of that. Like, the Giants and the Raiders were the ones seriously in play. So I don't even think we were entertaining the thought of Stafford. We looked into it, but it's like, no, not for that price. So I disagree with Schefter here. I do. I know I get Schefter's an insider and stuff, but I don't think it was like, oh man, this was option C for the Steelers. This was the Steelers' third option. They had to settle. No, I think they are very happy with how this offseason played out. I think they did good business. I think they played their hand right in all of it. Now for the next topic, obviously a point of conversation over the last several weeks, ever since we traded George Pickens, is who is our wide receiver 2 going to be? Who is that final addition going to be for this Steelers offense? Because we signed Rodgers, we got DK Metcalf, we got some of these young receivers, Pat Freiermuth, Darnell Washington. We got a nice running back room now, but we're still missing that like wide receiver 2, that outside receiver. We're in a very similar spot as to where we were last offseason and even throughout the course of the regular season until we traded for Mike Williams. So what are we going to do? I mean, we got Keenan Allen, we got Amari Cooper out there. We're going to trade for a big name like a Terry McLaurin. He's starting to get disgruntled down there with the Commanders. Brandon Ayuk, those trade rumors continue with the 49ers. What else? Are we going to try to get a guy that's familiar with Aaron Rodgers in-house, one of those Packers receivers, a Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, or an Allen Lazard? So, of that group, of all those names that I mentioned, the obvious number one option is Terry McLaurin, right? If he's legitimately available, which I still don't really think he is, I think when push comes to shove, the Commanders are going to sign him to an extension. They're going to figure something out to get on the same page because you don't do that to Jaden Daniels. You don't. Like, they made the trade for Laramie Tunsil. They're making these nice additions. They got Deebo Samuel in there. They feel like they got a really good chance to go all in this year while Jaden Daniels is still on this rookie contract. And why not? They made it to the NFC Championship last year. And Jaden Daniels should only be getting better. Now, you could have the whole sophomore slump, that type of stuff. I don't believe that's going to happen with Jaden Daniels. I think he's the truth. I think he's just going to continue to ascend, and he's going to be one of the elite quarterbacks in this league for a good period of time. You just don't trade Terry McLaurin away from that. You don't. You pay the man. I mean, I think he had the best season of his career last year with Jaden Daniels in Jaden Daniels' rookie season. But there is some contention there. McLaurin's not showing up to OTAs. He's not happy. Wants this contract extension. Commanders, I don't know what they're doing. It doesn't seem like there's a good communication between two parties. Terry McLaurin, if somehow is available, would be the top option for the Steelers. Like, we should make a trade for him. We should go out of our way, try to bring him in here. You have Terry McLaurin and DK Metcalf. That's better than Pickens and DK Metcalf. We can afford to do so. We can make it happen. So I saw a tweet that was thrown out there. This was suggested by Christopher Knox of Bleach Report of a trade proposal that the Steelers could make to land McLaurin. And it was this: our 2026 first-round pick, a 2027 fifth-round pick, and the Steelers get Terry McLaurin. Could it be anything else but our 2026 first-round pick? I'm sorry. We just can't do that. We can't. The draft's in Pittsburgh next year. We're in this, like, all-in 2025 make-or-break season. We don't know where we're going to be drafting with that first-round pick, although most likely it's going to be – it's not going to be in the top 10 or top 15, right? I mean, we're at least going 9-8. So, like, how valuable is that first-round pick? Really? That could be up for debate, but we know we're going to be looking at a quarterback. And we got all that ammo with the compensatory picks, those extra third-round picks. Like, we could move up, right? Like, depending on where we're at in the first round, we could package up that first-round pick, some of those additional picks that we got from the compensatory picks, and future picks to try to land like a top 10 quarterback and get our future directed on the right path. And that's whether or not Rodgers is here or not. Whether or not Rodgers had a good season, we're going to run it back with him. Because, like, it would be very smart to draft a future guy in this 2026 draft. I'll put it to you this way. I just want that flexibility in the first round for 2026. If it's a 2026 second-round pick and like a 4th-round pick. Like, I would be much more apt to do something like that. Let's give up a 2nd-round pick. Let's give up a future 4th or a future 5th. Get Terry McLaurin. Give him a DK Metcalf type of deal, and we have 2 receivers that are elite in-house. Almost like the Eagles offense. Almost like the Bengals offense. I'm for that. I would have been, like, even though we typically don't pay 2 receivers that type of money, I would have been for it with Pickens. Like, if everything went all well and good with Pickens this year and he proved to be a future leader for this Steelers team, he could be a guy that we could build around, then I would have been fine paying Pickens and DK Metcalf. I'm not opposed to that approach. I don't think the Steelers are either. They just want to pay the right guy, and I think Terry McLaurin would be a right guy to do that along with DK Metcalf for the future of this offense. And, like, holy hell, that's the thing too. If we make this trade, you want to talk about setting yourself up for the future and trying to get that future quarterback in here in 2026 and going forward. To have DK Metcalf and Terry McLaurin as the top 2 receivers, that's not bad at all. And an offensive line that should be ascending. Like, we're in a good spot. Again, I think the Steelers have set themselves up in a really good spot where they could make a play at Terry McLaurin here, right? And it still wouldn't leverage their future away. It still wouldn't be hurting them for what we could be doing for 2026 and going forward. I just don't want to give up that 2026 first-round pick. I'm sorry. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't. I think it would be better just to sign Amari Cooper then, or trade a 5th-round pick or 4th-round pick and get a Romeo Doubs in here. I would rather go that approach than giving up just anything else but the 1st-round pick to get Terry McLaurin. Anything else, I would be open to and entertain. Just not that. Don't throw that 1st-round pick in there. Last topic for today's show: Steelers standouts from OTAs. I just have a running list here of players that I've heard positive reports from coming from OTAs, and there's a couple guys that I wanted to throw additional reaction to. Peyton Wilson, J.J. Galbraith, undrafted rookie free agent. Will Howard was speaking his praises. Roman Wilson looks like he's ready to go. Corey Trice looking more comfortable and staying healthy. Will Howard struggled at first, but then really started to get his feet wet and look good towards the end of OTAs. Cole Holcomb looks back and better than ever. Broderick Jones, and then the Georgia guys. We talked about Broderick Jones last show. And then Darnell Washington lost some weight, looking spry out there, looking agile. Peyton Wilson, like, a couple of the names I wanted to, like, just talk about briefly, though. Peyton Wilson and Cole Holcomb, like, that's some nice insurance for our inside linebacker room. Because Peyton Wilson, we're looking for him to make that jump into year 2 to be a full-time guy along with Patrick Queen and have, like, 2 high-end linebackers for the next, like, 3 or 4 years. I mean, that tandem could be a thing. It really could be. But it's all about Peyton Wilson taking that next jump. But it's like, even if he doesn't fully, you got Cole Holcomb making his way back, and we lost to Landon Roberts. So, like, that is something we got to fill. Like, that's a piece that we need to address. So, Peyton Wilson, Cole Holcomb right there. And then we also, let's not forget, we signed Malik Harrison. And then we drafted Carson Bruner. We also still have Mark Robinson. So, like, I'm really liking what this inside linebacker room should be looking like. And Patrick Queen saying he's getting more comfortable year 2 in the system as well. Patrick Queen, Peyton Wilson, top 2 guys, I think that could be really dangerous. Roman Wilson, here's the thing that we forget about. I was talking to someone over the weekend, and they had a really good take. We were just talking Steelers ball. And they said, like, listen, we forget that we have 2 extra players for this year's draft class. Essentially, 2 extra rookies, 2 high-caliber rookies. And that's Roman Wilson and Troy Falatanu, because we didn't get to see them last year. We got basically an extra 1st-round pick and 3rd-round pick that could be making an impact for this year in terms of rookies, in terms of first-year guys. And, like, with Roman Wilson, this is a guy that could have easily been taken in the 2nd round of that 2024 draft. Easily, and it would have been warranted. National champion at Michigan, good route runner, 4.4 speed, almost 1,000 yards in that final year with the Wolverines. Like, just a gritty, tough guy with championship mentality and also a willing blocker, which is something we value in our wide receivers. We didn't get to see anything from him in that first year. And there were question marks about like his familiarity with the playbook and how comfortable he would have felt out there and with the chemistry with the quarterback, all that stuff, right? Now that he's had not only a full season with the Steelers, even though he didn't get his snaps and stuff, but he could address all that stuff with the playbook, everything. And now he's going into year 2. Same coordinator, too. There's continuity. Like, he's fine. And we're getting those reports saying that Roman Wilson is playing the part. He is looking the part for his second OTAs, and, like, he's ready to get after it. So I'm pumped about that. And if you're talking about Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin competing for your third receiver spot, with Calvin Austin having a pretty decent year last year. I mean, 500, it was almost 600 yards. Like he did stuff for the offense. Like, we still think there's more that could be done with Calvin Austin, but if you're talking about that, competing with Roman Wilson for your third receiver spot, and we still add another guy on the outside, another wide receiver too, and we already have DK, great problem to have for the offense. Yeah, that's about it. I guess J.J. Galbraith, like, that's the most, like, random name of this group because he's this undrafted rookie free agent, a tight end out of a small school. Yeah, I guess there's a more clear path or a more easy path. I'm not going to say fully easy, but there's a additional hope for him to make the roster with Donald Parham out for the season with the Achilles and some of the question marks surrounding Connor Hayward. Like, we know Pat Freiermuth, Darnell Washington, top 2 tight ends. There's talks about us potentially trading for another tight end like Jonnu Smith or Kyle Pitts. But in terms of guys that are locked in on the roster right now, it's only those 2 guys. I would say the 3rd and 4th spot are up for grabs. So J.J. Galbraith, if he's one of those guys, if DJ Thomas Jones, remember that's a name, a dude that could play tight end and also fullback, like, there's a chance for him. Like, I was talking about him potentially making the 53. Still a long shot for Galbraith to make the 53, but, you know, I don't know. You never know. You really never know with this type of stuff. I think there is a path now. There's a clear path or a more open path for a guy like Galbraith to make this final roster. I still think it's a stretch, but to make a name for himself in preseason, to get some opportunity to be a guy that's out there catching some passes late in these preseason games, and then it's just like, who knows, man? Who knows? Because I think in terms of Connor Hayward, he didn't make too much of an impact, or he didn't do too much for us last year in his first year in Arthur Smith's system. So I don't think his spot's locked up. And if a guy like Derek Watt could eventually get released, even though he's got the family connection, then I don't think it's out of question for Connor Hayward not to be here. I like Connor Hayward. I think he's a good player, but I don't know if he necessarily fits the Arthur Smith system like that. Because he's not a blocking fullback to that degree. He's not a primary tight end, and he's not a slot receiver. I mean, he's a Swiss Army knife, and that's what we like about Connor Hayward. But I think Arthur Smith, it seems like he likes having guys for particular roles. It doesn't seem like Connor Hayward fits. That's all. But that's it for today's show. Let me know your thoughts on any of the topics discussed down in the comments. Stay chilling. Enjoy your Monday. And here we go, Steelers. Peace.